I'd like to show you how to install one of the Sentry 2 motors on a Marvin window. We do recommend that you have a qualified electrician to do all the work. I am not a qualified electrician, in full disclosure, but I've worked on enough of these to know the little quirks and how to set them up, and hopefully this kind of give you an idea of how they work and lead you in the right direction. Let's get started. Okay, first we're going to do a little unboxing. Obviously this box is pretty old. I've had it in my truck for quite some time, but I do have all the proper parts in it. So to get started, you're definitely going to need these set of installation instructions. They cover so many important things. First and foremost is the proper gauge wire to use. So if the control module is more than 50 feet, you have to use a minimum of 18 gauge. If your control module is more than 100 feet away from your window, 14 gauge, so on and so forth. That is very important. If you do not do that, you can burn up your motor or you can burn up your control module, and that's very expensive. So we got our handy dandy instructions. The next thing we're going to have is the wall plate, and I'll show you how to put that on. Various hardware parts, your rain sensor, everything, all the components you need to hook it up to the window. I'll show you how to do that. The all-important control module. Now remember I was showing you that you need to use the proper gauge wire. If you do not, you can burn this up or the motor. And if I remember correctly, these are like $900 to $1,000. So if you burn this up, you're on your own. And then also in the box is the motor cover. And inside, you're gonna have your motor. And let me show you how to put it all together. A real important thing to do is to check the operation of this window. Just take a crank that came with the window and we're going to open it. You go 2 full revolutions, the window will open. Then you're going to hear it click sometimes, and then 2 full revolutions to lock it. And I'm going to take off this hardware cover so you can see how the internal mechanism works, because you're going to need to understand it to make sure everything works right. Let me show you. And open it a little bit. And we're going to take off this hardware cover here. You just take a putty knife in between the frame and the wood here, and that'll remove that, and that'll expose you to the whole mechanism here. There's a few important things I need to go over with you. One, we need to make sure that this little tack is here. If that is missing, that will not allow this hardware to release properly, because when you close the window, this helps push this in to allow the hardware to lock. Also, we need to make sure, sometimes the painter or somebody will take these off, or even they could be bent from just handling or something like that. You need to make sure that this is clearing this. If this is bent down or bent up, just take your keeper alignment tool. You can bend it up or down, whatever you need. Also, if this little point here on either side hits this, you could either fill these holes with some doweling and move these over, or you can often do what I just do, just take some nips and just nip off the very tip of that. So when you close the window, it clears that. So we need to make sure that all this is operating perfectly. Now that we're assured that all the hardware works properly, I want to take this opportunity to show you the rain sensor. Now, this rain sensor is designed for when it rains outside, that the window automatically closes. Well, one of the things is, if you live in a coastal area and you have this installed outside somewhere, if you have a lot of marine layer or a lot of dew in the air, it's going to think that it's raining outside and your window's going to close, and you're going to press the button, it's not going to open. So a lot of people don't install these at all. And I maybe seen a couple of these in the last couple decades where people actually install these. But if you're in an area where you absolutely insist on having it, what you can do is, since you got this off, is you can close the window and you can find a spot in the cover, and some people will put it here so when the window's open like this, and if you get that wind-driven rain coming through here and it gets on the sensor, it'll close automatically for you. That is one option. Another option you can do too, since you got this hardware cover off, is the drill for the wire. Some people will just take the wire and run it through here in front of the cover, or you can drill a little hole over here, obviously just make sure it's not in the way of all that, and then you can run your wire in this case, since this is our suitcase sample, and then you can have that for your wire so it looks nice and clean. So let's go ahead and put the hardware cover back on. Just like that. We got our wire ran for our motor. Now we'll go ahead and close the window till it locks. Now we can install this adapter. There's two ways to put it on. That's the wrong way, and the correct way is this way. You can see how the recess is in there. You do not install the plastic Lexan cover that comes with the stock handle. You do not need to put that on. So we leave that off. We go ahead and put that on there. And then take the little Allen head that we give you. There is a little groove here. If you can see that little slot there that this screw goes into. So once you get that on there, tighten it a little bit and just wiggle it until you find the spot to where it doesn't come off. So we'll go ahead and install our motor. If you see here, there is an Allen screw there that tightens onto this. We can fit this on here. So before I forget to tell you, if you do decide to run your rain sensor here or outside, you do have to use wire that has 4 leads in it, that has the proper gauge. This one only has 2, so obviously I wouldn't use it here. I would have to use the 4 wires. That way 2 of the wires can go on the motor and the other 2 can go on the rain sensor. So now that I remembered to tell you that, we're gonna go ahead. It comes with a little grommet that fits in this bracket, and that'll help reduce any vibration. And that fits on there like so. It also comes with this little compression fitting just like that. That holds that in place, and then we'll go ahead and screw that in. Good, and we'll screw this down. So go ahead and move that into position to where it looks relatively even. And we look at the distance to make sure it's there, and then we can tighten this Allen screw behind here. Go ahead and wire this up. Black to black, red to red. Now we're not going to install the cover at this time until we know everything works, and I'll show you why. Let's install the control module. I would not recommend that you install this in an attic. If you don't want it prominently displayed in the room, maybe on the back side of a closet works well. So we're gonna go ahead and mount it. Since this is our suitcase sample, we're just gonna mount it right to the side here. Okay, now would be a good time to go over our dip switch settings. This should be the factory setting, and this is what we're gonna stay with. If you decide to play with any of these switches, if you turn one on or off with the powers on, it's going to remember the last position. So when you apply, you have to disconnect the power, move the switch, then connect the power back up, then it will remember the position. So we're going to confirm these settings by looking in the box right here. You can see that they're already set with number 1 is on, and the rest of these are in the off position, and that's the way we should leave it, okay? So the next thing to do is install this little jumper by pushing in these tabs and pushing this in. If you did not get this little jumper, you can just use a little piece of wire, but that's very critical for that to be in there or the switch will not operate properly. So if you're at all curious how all this wires up, this mirrors the box, obviously, and this shows you where to hook everything up in here. So say if you had home automation system, you can hook it up to this, so when you set your alarm, the window automatically closes, or if your heater turns on, it automatically will close the window for you. So this gives you the whole detail. And obviously, if you don't have a window with 2 locks on it, that doesn't pertain to this. So this is the diagram. At this time, if you did decide to go with your rain sensor, you would hook it up where it says gray and green. You would push that in and strip that wire and you would put it in that position. So we'll go ahead and install the motor. Now just strip off enough insulation to go in there. And I've actually seen where they pulled off too much of this insulation, they put the wire in there, and the two wires ended up falling on each other and touching and shorting out this control module. And that was a very expensive mistake. Now let's go ahead and install our cover plate. As you can see, there's a silver side and a green side. If you're colorblind, it might be a little difficult for you to see, but this is the way it goes on, and it goes into this plug right here. And be mindful when you put that on there. I've actually accidentally moved it one place over too far, and obviously it doesn't work. So let's get that installed. This is a little fragile, so you do have to be very careful when installing it. Also with this, you get a wire strain relief that goes in the hole. You can put your Romex through it. And they also give you this connector. Our electrician just went ahead and just used wire nuts on that, which is fine, but you can use this if you want to make things a little easier for you. Okay, now that we have everything wired up, I want to show you why that we wanted to leave this off. Now, when you turn on the circuit breaker for the first time to power this up, the window should automatically close. If you turn the power on and the window starts to open, turn off the circuit breaker, go ahead and reverse the polarity on this motor. You can do it with one of the dip switches in there. Don't bother with it. It's just easier to turn these two wires around. And what happens is when the power, say if your window was open and the power goes out, it's automatically going to close because it wants to secure your house. So that's the reason for it. So we're going to power this thing up, and hopefully it's going to try to close. Let's try it out. Okay, here we go. Okay, it tried to close. It sensed that it was already closed, and it shut off. Now we're going to go ahead and have the control module learn the window, meaning it's going to learn how far it can open and how far it takes to close. And we do that by resetting this, and let me show you how to do that. Okay, we're going to go ahead and reset this switch by pressing these two outer buttons, like that. The light should remain red during the whole process. And you hear a load, and then it'll try to close all the way. Sometimes you will hear a little pop, and that's just the mechanism engaging. So if you hear a pop, that's okay. There you go. So now when you want to open your window, you go ahead and press the open window. So when you want to close your window, just press the picture of the closed. And that is the maximum speed that this runs at. That is normal. And that is the proper amount of noise that the motor makes. They are a little noisy. I want to show you this little piece here. This is designed to be installed if you have a screen installed here. You would attach this to the screen, so if someone removes the screen, it unplugs it, and if the power is being supplied to the motor, it cuts the power so the window doesn't close on someone happens to be breaking into your house or a child or something like that. And once you attach that to the screen, you would actually put this in this circuit. So you would just disconnect these two and run it in a series. So that way if the power comes to this wire, it comes back out through this one and then goes to your motor. So I wanted to show you that. So we're going to go ahead and tidy up these wires. If you want to use a zip tie or electrical tape, you can. Just tuck them behind there, make sure that no wires are in the way of the mechanism. And then we'll go ahead and install our cover. As you see, there's a hole here, and it comes with a screw. And I have seen where people lose this screw, and they end up using a long drywall screw through there, and of course it breaks the mechanism. So make sure it is a short screw, make sure that's lined up with that. So if your house is still going to be under construction and you're not going to have all this hooked up, I'm going to warn you that you do only have a year warranty on the electronics of the window, the motor, and the switch. So I highly recommend that you hook it up and make sure everything works properly first. Because say a year down the road, your house is just being finished and there's something wrong, I'm sorry. So this also comes with a piece of cardboard that covers this switch. I just wanted to show this to you. Obviously you wouldn't have your cover installed, but during construction when painters are spraying paint or texture or whatever, you want to protect everything that's in here, because when you go to try to put all these wires, if there's a ton of paint and texture in here, it's going to be very difficult for your electrician to wire this up. So you may want to put that back in. So at this point you could actually go ahead and just screw this back on and be done. But what I'd like to show you is how to hook up this optional RF remote control. RF meaning it's radio frequency and you can use it from multiple rooms up to a certain point. Let me show you how to program this to this. It can be a little tricky, so let me show you how to do that. So with the remote, you will get a set of installation instructions on how to properly program this. It can be a little tricky. So first we have to put the batteries in it. And once you do that, the display is going to show set, and it must show set or you cannot program it. Now the next step is to go ahead and press the Learn button inside here. Let me show you. Hopefully you can see that. That's the set button. You go ahead and press that button. You see the little light on, like that. Now it's ready to learn. And now we just press the unit number, and after we do that, we hit open. And then once you do that, it has learned it. Now, if you wanted this to be unit number 2, you press unit again until this displays number 2, and if you had window 3, window 4, and so on, and you're just going and press open, and then it'll learn it. And you have to do this step for each control module. Each one is independent of each other. So now let's give it a try. Press open, and it's opening. That's great. So say if you did not want to open this window and you have another window that's labeled number 2, you just hit unit 2 and hit open, and it'll send a message to the other one to open. If you had 3 windows, press it unit again to where it show 3, and you can program up to 9 windows, I believe. Now, if you wanted every single window to open or every single window to close, there's an all function. So if you hit all, close, every single window in your house will close that has this motorized feature on it. There you have it. That's how you hook up the control module with the motor and the Sentry 2 setup with the remote control. I hope this video helped you out. If this video helped you out, please help me out by hitting the subscribe button, and that helps me out. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.